Hey you! Do you struggle to arrange your drums? Do you struggle to get them sounding crisp? Then look no further. How to arrange and create drum-based drums. So right here we have all the drums leading up to the drop from my latest track, Rude Boy, which you can listen to on Spotify. There's a link in the description. So right here we have all the drums leading up to the drop, and what we're going to do is go through each section, how I arrange them and what plugins I put on them. So you can either follow along with your own samples or download the sample pack for these drums on my Patreon. It's up to you, whichever you decide to do. There's a link in the description to my Patreon. So what we're going to do is go on to step mode here. I'm just going to turn on the kick, and let's just zoom into the kick. So the pattern is very simple. It's just on the first beat, and then it's going to be here, the second beat, and then that's just repeated throughout. So it should sound like this. In terms of plugins and effects for the kick, all I've got is an EQ, just cutting out some of the mids and a little bit of the highs. So that really depends on the kick sample that you're using. So probably wouldn't normally be like that, but it was quite an aggressive kick sample that I was using. So I thought it needed a bit of extra EQing. Next we move on to the clap, and this is really simple. It's just going to be on the second beat of every bar. So second beat, fourth beat, and so on. That should sound like this. And what I've actually done is layered this with a snare, another snare, and finally some percussion. And that's just got it sounding really thick and juicy. In terms of plugins, I've got a FabFilter Saturn with the Little Spice setting for the first clap, and then I've just got an EQ for the second one, as I was just using the highs of that. And then another EQ using some of the mid-range and the highs for that, for the third one, and then nothing on the last one. And then all of this is going to the clap group, which just has some more EQ, enhancing the stereo, more EQ, and then decapitator on between 3 and 4. And this decapitator basically just gives it an overall solid feeling. It like molds all the snares and claps together. Then I've got a convolver, a reverb that automates in before the drop happens. So I'll play that now for you. So the convolver is here. Just adds a little bit of something before the drop happens. So next I've got some breaks, and this is literally just before the drop to give the drop more oomph. And I'm using a sample here, and listen to it. This is quite an aggressive break. All I've done is added some reverb on my reverb channel, which you can see here. And that is on 98%. Next we move on to the hi-hats. So the first hi-hat I've got is just hitting quite frequently. So on here I've got it every 2 steps. And if we actually go into it, I've changed the velocity of each one individually, and that just gives it a sort of swing. So if you listen to it, you can hear the swing that it gives the hat, and that just makes it sound a bit more natural. Then I've got another hi-hat here, every second beat. So on that beat there and that beat there. And again, I've messed with the velocity. Just gives it a bit more bounce. And then I've got a third hi-hat, which is here at the end of the bar. And then that one is being panned left and right, which you can hear, which is just a subtle effect. You don't really need to do that. I don't know why I've done that, to be honest, but sounds cool. And then we've got another hat sort of percussion sound at the end of the second bar, which sounds pretty cool. For the processing for these, it's mainly just EQ, getting rid of the highs a bit, and then we've got some stereo enhancer and put up a little bit, and then for rebalance, just turning the volume up slightly. Same for that one. And then a little bit of reverb as well, from the same reverb that the brakes were using, just to give it that molding together of the drums. So the final stage to these drums is tops, and I've used some samples for this. So the first one sounds like this. And it's just got an EQ on it. And then the second sample sounds like this. And again, that's just got an EQ on it. So altogether, the drums sound like this. And then in the drop, I've just got some extra little bits, like another snare hitting at the end of this section. And then I've got some extras down here when the drop continues. Just like that, some additional percussion. And yeah, all that molded together sounds pretty cool. You get some kind of, it's kind of a mix between rollers and jump up, I'd say these drums are, along with the other bits we'll go through in next week's session. So hopefully from this now you can either use the Patreon samples to arrange the drums exactly like this and get an idea of how to arrange drums for drum and bass, or you can bring in your own samples and try it out. On top of this, all the drums are getting sent to a drum bus. So this is using just a basic FabFilter Saturn with the drive up a tiny bit, and then a limiter to push the drums to the limit, basically. And then we've also got a master channel, just bringing the volume down so that when the drums come back in, it's a bit more aggressive. That's just a little trick that I've learned to use, but not to use with the vocals. If you're using vocals in your track, try and avoid that, just for the drums and maybe the bass. And then we've got some parallel compression here and some parallel distortion here. And I go through how these work in some of my other videos, which you can check out on my channel. If you think it would be helpful for me to make whole videos on parallel compression and parallel distortion, leave a comment down below and I will make one. And then obviously we have the master channel, but I've got a video specifically on that, which you can check out on my channel, going through how to master. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Next week we'll go through some of the bass sounds from this track. The track is called Rude Boy and it's on Spotify. You can check it out in the link there's a link in the description to it. And I'll see you next week.